Let's bring in our Sky News colleague, former Labor Minister Graham Richardson. Richo, thank you as always. I want to start with Chris Minns. What are your thoughts on the New South Wales election? I love getting your temperature on these things a few months out. Where's it heading? Will Minns win?
Well, I think there's an assumption that Minns is going to win. And I think it's a brave assumption because he's got to win 9 seats. That doesn't happen all that often. So I think he'll win, but I'm by no means saying this is a certainty. I think Perrottet is an impressive guy. He's doing well. His problem is he's not Gladys. And the mob loved Gladys. With her gone, it makes a very difficult job for the Liberals.
Yeah, and you're right, I think, to point out that they're both quite impressive political operators to me. They're both good communicators and both, I guess, a compelling proposition from both. It could be a really close race, this one.
It could well be. And you'll note there's not a lot of difference between them and their policies. When you go and try to find why do people vote Liberal, why do they vote Labor, generally speaking, you know, the answer's been there's the trade unions and Labor's affiliation to that scares a lot of people. I'm not sure if that's the case these days. But one thing I am sure of is that you've got, for the first time in a long time, 2 really impressive candidates going against each other. You know, Carr used to beat up a new opposition leader every 5 minutes. Rand did it every 2 minutes. But it's not going to happen like that this time.
No, it's going to be very interesting to watch for us and all concerned. Now, to The Voice, this vote's going to happen in the second half of the year, probably October, maybe December, but it's certainly in the last quarter, it seems. What's your read on where it's at? The government's got a bit of work to do, it seems.
Well, look, I'm by no means convinced myself. It's unusual for me to say that against Labor policy, but I've got a long way to go before I vote yes for it. And if it's like that with me, I've got a feeling that it's like that with a lot of people. So I think Anthony Albanese's got his work cut out. He's going to have to do a lot of selling on this. Now, I'd query, really, is it worth it? Is it really worth putting your whole political reputation on the line? And I think you've got to try and come up with a good answer to that question before you go ahead.
Yeah, well, they are going ahead, aren't they? It's full steam ahead as far as the government's concerned, but you've got sort of people breaking off from, the Nationals saying they're not going to do it, the Greens, Lydia Thorpe on the far left saying she's opposed to it. There's opposition to this emerging from all sorts of quarters.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't take Lydia Thorpe too seriously. She's against everything. She's just an opposition person, and I don't think that counts much in Australia. But there are significant people who have raised queries about this. It's going to be a very interesting time seeing who gets up and who doesn't.
Jim Chalmers has written an interesting piece in the monthly 6,000-word essay. We've seen previous iterations, I guess, for new treasurers and prime ministers. Kevin Rudd did it. Wayne Swan did it. Now Jim Chalmers has done it. The sort of values-based capitalism is the way, I think, to describe what he's arguing for. Not the sort of thing that you would be widely read in his backyard of Logan, I wouldn't think. It's not to his local constituents. What's this about, Graham?
Well, the monthly is not meant for the public, obviously. It's a sort of an in-house magazine for the elite. And there's some very good stuff in it. I'm not trying to denigrate it. I'm just stating a fact. It's not for the masses. And so you can opine in that without, I think, having much of an effect. But people, especially treasurers, like to opine and like to make sure that you know what they're thinking and what their vision is. At least you've got to say that he's got a bit of a vision, which has not been the case all the way through my lifetime when I look at politicians. I think he's impressive, Chalmers, and I'll look forward to to not just reading this one, but to watching his career. I think he's a certain future Prime Minister, this bloke. I'd like to be as sure as I am winning the lottery as I am of that.
Well, there's a discussion, Andrew Clennell suggesting earlier, that some in Labor think that this piece is in part to the Labor faithful to say, look, this is my vision and inclusive discussion, all that sort of stuff. It's about the message to the Labor internal community as opposed to the broader community, maybe for that very reason, Graham, for
I think that's a pretty
longer-term future.
Yeah, pretty fair assessment. I think it really is for the Labor Party, but it's. I think he's done it in the right forum. The Monthlies is a respected place where you don't just put in little clips of thought bubbles. You actually have to put in pieces that are carefully constructed, carefully thought out. And I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I can't debate it right now. But I know this bloke. I know it'll make a lot of sense. But I'll get to that tonight.
Good on you, Richo. Great to see you. See you next week.
Thanks, mate.